rain hammered against the glass corridors of Sterling Industries Tower long after midnight, each drop catching the fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead like restless spirits. Marcus Webb pushed his janitor's cart down the empty hallway, the wheels squeaking a lonely rhythm that echoed through 47 floors of corporate ambition and late-night secrets. His 7-year-old daughter, Lily, sat cross-legged on a bench near the elevator bank, swinging her legs in that carefree way children do when the world still feels safe. Her worn stuffed rabbit, a gift from the mother she'd never remember, rested in her lap as she worked on homework under the harsh glow of vending machine lights. At 36, Marcus stood 6'2", with the kind of broad shoulders that came from years of discipline, not gym memberships. His dark brown hair was cut in a precise style that hinted at former structure, though nobody at Sterling Industries knew why. His hands, calloused from pushing mops and emptying trash bins, bore faint scars that whispered of a different life entirely. Those marks told stories he never shared, of a time when he'd been part of something classified, so classified it had no official name. They'd called it extraction operations, a sanitized term for missions where politicians' children were saved from basements in war zones, where hostages were pulled from compounds that didn't exist on any map. Marcus had been exceptional at it, perhaps too exceptional. He could read a room in seconds, neutralize threats before they escalated, and carry a wounded civilian 20 meters through hostile territory without breaking stride. Then Catherine happened. Catherine, with her bright laugh and her unwavering belief that Marcus could be more than a weapon. They'd married quietly in a small ceremony that felt like a promise to a different future. When she became pregnant, Marcus swore he'd leave the life behind after one final mission. But Catherine never heard that promise fulfilled. Complications during Lily's birth took her away, leaving Marcus holding a newborn who needed him more than any mission ever had. So he disappeared, not from Lily, but from the world that knew him as an operator. He became invisible in the way that service workers often are, cleaning the offices where million-dollar decisions were made by people who never truly saw him. Have you ever worked a job where you felt invisible? Share your story in the comments below. Lily Webb was everything her father was not. Where Marcus concealed, she revealed. At 7, she possessed her mother's blonde hair and her father's gray eyes, along with an insatiable curiosity about the world. She asked him questions about everything: why birds flew south, how tall buildings stayed standing, whether stars knew people were watching them. Marcus answered what he could and invented answers when he couldn't, because her wonder was the one thing that made his quiet life feel complete. On this particular midnight shift, as rain streaked the windows and the city slept below, neither Marcus nor Lily could have imagined that their carefully constructed, peaceful existence was about to shatter. 3 men stepped out from the stairwell shadows, moving with the calculated precision of hunters. They weren't security guards or maintenance workers. Their eyes locked on Lily immediately, and in that moment, the little girl's world tilted on its axis. She froze, watching as they closed the distance. 20 feet, now 15, now 10. Their faces were methodical, emotionless, devoid of the mercy that should exist in any world where children were safe. "Daddy, please stop them!" Her scream shattered the midnight silence like breaking glass. Marcus turned. In that instant, thinking became irrelevant. His body remembered what his mind had tried to forget. The janitor's uniform became meaningless. The mop cart clattered aside as he moved with the fluid grace of someone born for violence. 6 seconds. That was all it took. He closed the distance in 3 fluid strides. The first attacker barely registered Marcus's presence before an elbow caught him precisely in the throat. Calculated, controlled, the kind of strike that incapacitated without killing. The man dropped, gasping for air that wouldn't come. The second attacker threw a punch that would have shattered an ordinary man's jaw. Marcus slipped it effortlessly, redirected the momentum, and drove his fist into the man's solar plexus with surgical precision. The attacker folded like origami. The third man reached for a knife. Fatal mistake. Marcus caught his wrist, twisted until something audibly popped, and swept his legs with a move that belonged in classified training manuals. The man's head connected with the polished marble floor, with a sound that echoed through the empty corridor like a period at the end of a violent sentence. Lily stood frozen, her blue eyes wide with shock and something that might have been awe. Then she ran, not away from the violence, but toward her father, crashing into his arms with the absolute trust that only children possess. Marcus held her, his heart hammering against his ribs as the reality of what had just happened settled over him like a shroud. These hadn't been random criminals. Their positioning, their coordination, their equipment. These were professionals. Someone with serious resources had sent them. And worse, someone had sent them to a place where his daughter was vulnerable. He looked at the security camera, blinking red in the corner, knowing that everything had been recorded. Then he looked at the three unconscious men and calculated his options. Maybe 5 minutes before backup arrived, before questions got asked that he couldn't answer without destroying the life he'd built. Marcus knew every camera blind spot in the building, every stairwell with broken locks, every exit that wouldn't trigger additional alarms. By the time security arrived, they'd find three confused men with no explanation and no janitor in sight. The morning came not with police sirens, but with something far more ominous. Lily was eating cereal at their small kitchen table in their modest Southie apartment when Marcus heard them. The distinctive sound of a government motorcade. He pulled back the frayed curtain. 5 black SUVs with federal plates had blocked the narrow street. Men in tactical gear were establishing a security perimeter with the efficiency of a practiced operation. And stepping out of the armored Cadillac in the center of it all was Victoria Sterling herself. She wore a red dress with a crisp V-neck cut, her blonde hair pulled back in a style that suggested both elegance and authority. Her expression was unreadable behind designer sunglasses, but her presence here, in this neighborhood where rust stains ran down building sides and laundry hung on fire escapes, was impossible to misinterpret. Neighbors poured onto their stoops, phones appearing in hands like flowers blooming toward sunlight. A CEO didn't visit the poor side of town with a government escort unless something seismic was happening. Victoria Sterling climbed 4 flights of stairs like she was ascending to a boardroom, her heels clicking against worn linoleum with determination. When she knocked on Marcus's door, the sound was steady and authoritative. Lily looked at her father with questions dancing in her gray eyes. Marcus put a finger to his lips and opened the door. Victoria stood in the hallway, her polished heels sinking slightly into carpet that hadn't been replaced since the Reagan administration. Up close, without the distance of corporate hierarchy, Marcus could see she was younger than he'd thought, and scared, trying to hide it behind practiced composure, but scared nonetheless. "Mr. Webb," her voice was controlled, measured. "We need to talk about last night. What would you do if your quiet life suddenly turned dangerous? Let me know in the comments." Marcus stepped aside, gesturing to their humble living room with its thrift store furniture and walls that told stories of dozens of previous tenants. Victoria entered, looking impossibly out of place among their patched-together life. "About last night," Marcus's tone remained carefully neutral. Victoria removed her sunglasses, revealing sharp green eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. "So you admit it was you?" "I admit I protected my daughter from 3 men who had no business being there." Victoria studied him with the intensity of someone accustomed to reading people for a living. She saw the disciplined stance he couldn't fully hide, the way his eyes automatically tracked her security detail outside, the scars on his knuckles, the preternatural calm that radiated from someone who'd survived worse situations than most people could imagine. "No ordinary janitor drops 3 trained operatives in 6 seconds, Mr. Webb. No ordinary CEO shows up at a janitor's apartment with government security, Miss Sterling. They stared at each other across the small room, each recognizing in the other someone with secrets worth protecting. Lily tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, who's the fancy lady?" Victoria's professional mask cracked slightly. She knelt down to Lily's eye level, her voice gentling in a way that surprised Marcus. "I'm Victoria. I work in the building where your daddy works. He did something very brave last night." "He's always brave," Lily said with the absolute certainty that children reserve for their heroes. Victoria stood slowly, something shifting in her expression. "May I sit down?" Marcus gestured to their worn couch. Victoria perched on its edge, looking like an exotic bird that had accidentally landed in someone's backyard garden. "I've been followed for 3 months," she began, her words measured and precise. "Professional surveillance. Someone breached my personal security network. Initially, my team assumed corporate espionage. Then we started identifying patterns. The same faces at different events. Vehicles that appeared too consistently in my vicinity." Marcus felt the first cold fingers of understanding creeping up his spine. "Last week, my head of security showed me footage of 3 men conducting reconnaissance at Sterling Industries. The same 3 men who attacked your daughter last night." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. "They weren't after Lily. No, they were after me. But I wasn't there. Changed my schedule at the last minute. Security believes they were attempting to acquire leverage." Victoria's voice dropped. "Your daughter was in the wrong place, or the right place, depending on your perspective." "Depending on whether you're the one being hunted," Marcus said quietly. "Mr. Webb, whoever sent those men knows you stopped them. They know you're not what you appear to be. My security team ran your background. Your employment history extends back exactly 7 years. Before that, nothing. No college records, no prior addresses, no digital footprint. You're a ghost." "I'm a janitor." "No." Victoria's voice carried conviction. "You're someone who became a janitor. There's a significant difference." She paused, studying his face. "I need to understand what we're dealing with. Are you connected to this? Are you a threat to my company?" Lily had wandered to the window to watch the impressive motorcade below, pressing her nose against the glass and making fog patterns with her breath. Marcus kept his voice low. "I'm a father trying to raise his daughter in peace. That's all I am now. Whatever I was before doesn't matter. It matters if it puts my company at risk." Marcus's tone hardened slightly. "Your company? 3 men tried to grab my daughter. I don't care about your company. I care about keeping her safe. Then we have common ground." Victoria pulled out her phone, displaying security footage. "These 3 men, do you recognize them?" Marcus studied the faces on the screen. Soldiers bearing, contractor physiques, Eastern European features on 2 of them. The third looked American Special Forces, probably discharged under questionable circumstances. "Mercenaries," he said finally. "Well-funded ones. How can you tell?" "I can tell." Victoria put the phone away, her expression troubled. "My head of security believes this is about me, about something from my past. When I was 14, I was kidnapped. It's not public information. My father paid a fortune to keep it quiet. But whoever's orchestrating this knows. They're recreating it. Why? That's what we discovered yesterday." Victoria's voice became grave. "Viktor Petrov. Does that name mean anything to you?" Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "Where did you hear that name?" "My security team traced the shell companies funding these mercenaries. Every lead eventually pointed back to him." "Do you know him?" Marcus sat down heavily. 20 years ago, I was part of a counterterrorism unit called Phantom Operations. We conducted extractions, hostage rescues, the kind of missions that never appeared in newspapers. One of those missions involved a senator's daughter who'd been taken by an Eastern European criminal syndicate. Victoria's breathing became shallow. Viktor Petrov was the middleman who arranged the kidnapping and negotiated the ransom. We disrupted his operation, cost him millions in lost revenue, and destroyed his reputation in certain criminal circles. He swore revenge against everyone involved in the operation. Victoria's face had gone completely white. What was the senator's name? Sterling, Senator Malcolm Sterling. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Victoria sat down heavily, her hand pressed to her mouth. You, she whispered. You were the one who saved me. Have you ever discovered that a stranger was connected to your past in an incredible way? Tell me about it in the comments. Marcus nodded slowly. I didn't know it was you when we met. I didn't know you were Malcolm Sterling's daughter. To me, you were just a frightened child who needed help. You carried me through the forest for hours. You told me stories about brave princesses and distant stars to keep me calm. You said, her voice broke slightly, you said my father loved me very much, and I would see him soon. You hummed a lullaby that I still remember. Your mother's favorite song, Marcus said softly. Your father mentioned it during the briefing. He wanted you to hear something familiar. Victoria's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. I've been searching for you for 20 years, and you've been here the entire time, cleaning my building. I didn't know. When I left the unit after Catherine died, I left everything behind, including the faces of the people I'd saved. It was safer that way for everyone involved. She stood abruptly, walking to their small window, where her reflection ghosted against the morning light. So Viktor Petrov is orchestrating this because of me. Because my father refused to pay ransom 20 years ago, and your team intervened instead. Revenge delayed is revenge amplified, Marcus said quietly. He's had 2 decades to build resources, establish networks, plan this operation with meticulous detail. But why now? Why after 20 years? Marcus considered this. Something must have triggered him. A financial loss, a threat to his current operations, or, he paused, or he finally found us both in the same place. Then he's not just targeting me, he's targeting you too. Victoria turned from the window. And Lily. Marcus looked at his daughter, who'd fallen asleep on the couch despite the morning sunlight, exhausted by the previous night's trauma. I won't let him near her. We won't, Victoria corrected firmly. You saved me once. Let me help save her. That evening, while Lily slept restlessly in their small bedroom, Marcus sat by the window with the lights off, watching the street below. At exactly 2 a.m., he heard it, the faint whir of rotors outside their window. The drone was small, expensive, equipped with a camera lens that glinted in the streetlight like a predator's eye. Marcus moved with fluid precision, grabbing a broom from the kitchen, opening the window in one smooth motion, and launching the improvised projectile with the accuracy of someone who'd thrown much deadlier things in darker places. The broom handle caught the drone perfectly, sending it spiraling into the alley below in a shower of sparks and plastic fragments. By the time Marcus reached the alley, both the drone and its remains had vanished. Someone had been waiting, watching, ready to retrieve the evidence. He texted the number Victoria had given him. They're watching. Her response came immediately. How close? Close enough to count the freckles on Lily's nose. Pack a bag. My team is en route. Not yet. If we run, they know they've got us scared. They have surveillance on your apartment. You should be scared. Scared and tactical are different things. Give me 12 hours. There was a long pause before her next message. You're impossible. And you're used to people following orders without question. 12 hours. Then we do this my way. The next morning brought a photograph slipped under Marcus's door. Lily at school taken the previous day. Someone had been close enough to photograph his daughter on school grounds. Marcus's hands shook with controlled rage as he dialed Victoria's number. They photographed my daughter at school. Bring Lily to my office, now. It's the middle of the school day. I don't care. If they're bold enough to surveil a school, they're prepared to escalate. My building has the best security in Boston. Yours doesn't. Marcus looked at the photograph again, his daughter's innocent smile captured by someone who meant her harm. He made the call no parent wants to make. I'll be there in an hour. Victoria's office occupied the entire 45th floor of Sterling Industries Tower, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, a space designed to intimidate. But when Marcus arrived with Lily, who was confused about leaving school early, Victoria had transformed it. A couch was made up with soft pillows and a colorful comforter. Hot chocolate waited on a side table, still steaming. Children's books were stacked nearby alongside crayons and drawing paper. A laptop was set up with kid-friendly movies queued and ready. I called my assistant, Victoria explained, kneeling down to Lily's level. She has nieces and knew exactly what a 7-year-old might need. Lily perked up at the hot chocolate, and while she drank and colored pictures of rainbows and unicorns, the adults talked in low voices across the room. My security team found remnants of the drone you destroyed, Victoria said. Advanced surveillance grade, the kind that cost more than most people's cars. Whoever's funding this operation has unlimited resources. There's more, Marcus said grimly. We traced the mercenaries from the other night. They were hired through a network of shell companies, all ultimately controlled by Petrov Industries, Victor's legitimate business empire. Victoria's face grew pale. How big is his operation? Think multinational corporation with a very dark side business. Import-export, private security, logistics, all legitimate fronts for money laundering, arms dealing, and human trafficking. He's built himself into someone untouchable by conventional law enforcement. So why come after us now? What changed? Marcus had been thinking about this all morning. 3 months ago, there was a major bust of a trafficking ring in Eastern Europe. Interpol took down a key pipeline that was worth hundreds of millions to Victor's operation. He needs a win, something that restores his reputation and shows his competitors that he's still dangerous. And we represent unfinished business. The one operation that made him look weak 20 years ago, taking us both down, the girl he failed to ransom and the operative who humiliated him, that's worth more than money to him. Victoria moved to her desk, pulling out a thick folder. My security team put together everything they could find on Victor's current operations. Shipping companies, private military contractors, even a few legitimate tech firms. He's not just a criminal anymore. He's an international businessman with criminal enterprises on the side. Marcus studied the documents. This is good intelligence, but it also means he has resources we can't match conventionally. What do you mean? I mean we can't outspend him, we can't outgun him, and we can't outlast him, but we have something he doesn't expect, which is each other. He's planning for a CEO and a janitor. He's not planning for a team. Have you ever had to trust someone completely to protect what matters most? Share your experience in the comments. The next 72 hours moved with the inexorable momentum of a gathering storm. Victoria's security team swept Sterling Industries systematically, discovering 2 additional surveillance devices and identifying 3 potential breach points. More troubling, they uncovered evidence that Victor had people inside the company. A maintenance worker who'd been placed 8 months earlier, and a mid-level finance executive who'd been compromised through blackmail involving his gambling debts. But Victoria and Marcus possessed advantages Victor's calculations couldn't account for. Victoria had institutional resources, legal authority, and the kind of corporate infrastructure that could mobilize quickly. Marcus had operational experience, tactical knowledge, and the desperate clarity that comes from protecting someone you love unconditionally. Together, they had something Victor couldn't factor into his equations. They cared about the same thing with absolute desperation, and they trusted each other completely. The attack came on the fourth night, precisely as Marcus had predicted it would. Lily was sleeping in Victoria's office, protected by two security specialists who'd been positioned outside the reinforced door. Marcus and Victoria were reviewing building schematics in the adjacent conference room when the alarm system didn't trigger. It simply went silent. "They're here," Marcus said, his voice carrying the calm certainty of someone who'd anticipated this moment for days. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from its wall mounting. Heavy, blunt, immediately available. Sometimes the most effective weapons were the simplest ones. "Get to Lily. Lock down the office. Don't open that door for anyone except me." "Where are you going?" "To have a conversation with some uninvited guests." Marcus moved through the darkened corridors like a specter, the emergency lighting casting red shadows that danced across walls lined with corporate achievements and motivational photography. He could hear them, footsteps attempting stealth, radio communications kept to whispers, the subtle sounds of a coordinated assault. He counted at least 10 hostiles, probably more. They were searching floor by floor with tactical precision, looking for Victoria. They didn't know about Marcus, which gave him the only advantage he was likely to get. The first two went down in a supply closet, quick, quiet, efficient. Marcus used their own radios to monitor the others, learning their communication patterns and tactical approach. They were professionals, but they were hunting a CEO, not expecting to encounter someone with his particular skill set. The third and fourth fell in the stairwell, where Marcus used the confined space to neutralize their numerical advantage. They couldn't surround him, couldn't coordinate effectively. One at a time, they became manageable problems with permanent solutions. The fifth operative was smarter than his colleagues. Instead of coming through doors like the others, he rappelled through a conference room window, crashing through reinforced glass in a shower of fragments that caught the emergency lighting like falling stars. They fought brutally among overturned chairs and scattered documents. Marcus took a knife slash across his ribs that burned like fire, but didn't slow his momentum. The mercenary took a desk lamp to the skull and stopped moving permanently. By the time Marcus reached the executive level, his shirt was soaked with blood. Not all of it his own. He was breathing hard, his knuckles split and raw, but Lily's room was just ahead, and standing between him and that room were three final mercenaries, and Viktor Petrov himself. Viktor was exactly what Marcus had expected, a distinguished man in his early 50s with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded boardrooms and embassy receptions. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in 6 months, and he held a pistol with the casual familiarity of someone who'd used such tools before. "Marcus Webb," Viktor said, his accent carrying traces of Eastern Europe beneath cultured English. "Or should I use your operational designation? I believe it was Ghost." "Viktor, you look older." 20 years will do that to a man." Viktor smiled, but his eyes remained winter cold. "I've waited a very long time for this conversation." "Then you've wasted 20 years. "Have I? I've built an empire while you've been pushing a mop around office buildings. Tell me, who's really won here?" "The man whose daughter is still breathing." Viktor's smile faded. "Not for much longer. You cost me everything that night in Prague. My reputation, my network, my standing with very dangerous people. And for what? To save some politician's spoiled daughter? To save an innocent child. That's all she was, a 14-year-old girl who'd done nothing wrong. And now she's the CEO who's about to die in a tragic building incident, along with her mysterious janitor and his unfortunate daughter." Viktor gestured to his remaining men. "Kill him. Make it memorable." The three mercenaries advanced with methodical confidence. Marcus was exhausted, injured, outnumbered 3-1, but he'd survived worse odds by understanding something his opponents didn't: how to fight when everything that mattered hung in the balance. The first mercenary came in high and aggressive. Marcus ducked under the attack, drove his shoulder into the man's midsection, and used his momentum to throw him into the second attacker. They went down in a tangle of limbs and confusion. The third pulled a tactical knife, lunging with trained precision. Marcus caught his wrist, twisted until he heard the distinctive snap of breaking bone, then silenced the man's scream with an elbow to the temple that dropped him instantly. The first two were recovering, getting back to their feet with the determined resilience of experienced fighters. Marcus grabbed a heavy crystal award from a nearby shelf, swung it like a club. Glass and crystal exploded against Skull. One stayed down permanently. The other lunged desperately. Marcus sidestepped, caught the attacker's ankle, and sent him headfirst into a steel filing cabinet with enough force to dent the reinforced metal. Then it was just Marcus and Victor, breathing hard in a room littered with unconscious bodies and broken furniture. Victor's hands shook slightly as he raised his pistol. "You should have stayed hidden, Ghost. I tried, you found me anyway. Because you were sloppy, sentimental. That child made you weak." Marcus stepped forward, ignoring the weapon. "No, Victor. That child made me strong." Victor fired. Marcus moved. The bullet grazed his shoulder, spinning him slightly but not stopping his advance. Victor fired again, missed entirely, as panic affected his aim. Then Marcus was on him, and 20 years of hatred collided with a father's desperation. The fight was brief but vicious. Victor was trained and dangerous, but Marcus was fighting for something beyond his own survival. It ended with Victor unconscious against the wall, and Marcus leaning heavily against a desk, bleeding and exhausted but victorious. Behind him, a door opened. Lily stood there, tears streaming down her face, with Victoria right behind her. "Daddy!" Lily ran to him, and Marcus caught her with his uninjured arm, holding her close as the adrenaline finally began to fade. "It's okay, baby. It's over. It's all over." But Lily pulled back, looking at the blood. "You're hurt. Just a little. Daddy's tougher than he looks." "You're the toughest daddy in the whole world," Victoria said softly, tears in her own eyes. "Thank you." Marcus looked at her over Lily's head. "You'd have done the same for me." "I don't know if I would have been brave enough." "Bravery isn't about being fearless," Marcus said, holding his daughter close. "It's about being terrified and doing what needs to be done anyway." Police arrived 12 minutes later, followed by FBI 20 minutes after that. By sunrise, Viktor Petrov was in federal custody, facing enough charges to ensure 3 consecutive life sentences. The mercenaries who'd survived were facing similar fates, and the people Victor had planted inside Sterling Industries were being systematically removed. Marcus sat in a hospital bed, getting stitches while Lily slept in the chair beside him, exhausted by the night's events but safe. Victoria sat in the chair on his other side, her hand resting lightly on his uninjured arm. The government had come with offers: return to active service, full reinstatement, better pay, the chance to serve his country again in official capacity. Marcus had listened politely and declined everything. "My daughter needs a father, not a weapon. I'm done being a weapon." They'd accepted his decision and left, but Victoria had stayed. "I have an offer too," she said quietly. "If it's about the security position, no, it's about family." Victoria looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully despite everything. "She needs a mother figure. I need a family. You need someone to share the burden with." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Victoria, you don't understand what life with someone like me entails." "Marcus, you saved my life twice. Once from kidnappers when I was 14, and now from a loneliness I didn't even realize was killing me slowly." Her voice was soft but certain. "You showed me 20 years ago that good people exist, that someone would come when I needed them most. Let me be that person for Lily. Please." Why? Because 20 years ago, you carried a terrified girl through a dark forest and made her believe in heroes again. Because you've spent 7 years being the kind of father every child deserves. Because sometimes the people meant to be in our lives find us in the most unexpected ways. Marcus studied her face, seeing past the corporate executive to the woman who'd spent 2 decades looking for the person who'd saved her, only to find him cleaning her floors. She'd need to stay in her current school, and I'd need weekends off. Victoria smiled, the first completely genuine smile he'd seen from her. Done. Sometimes the people meant to be in our lives find us in the most unexpected ways. Have you experienced an unexpected connection that changed everything? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone who needs hope today. 1 year later, on a Saturday morning that felt like the beginning of everything, 3 people walked through Boston Common together. Marcus, his shoulder completely healed and now wearing the title of Chief Security Officer for Sterling Industries, pushed Lily on the swings while Victoria sat on a nearby bench, watching them with something that looked remarkably like peace. She'd restructured her entire company to be more family-friendly, implemented flexible schedules, and discovered that happiness didn't require sacrificing everything for corporate success. She'd also learned that the best security for her company wasn't technology or protocols. It was having someone who truly cared about protecting the people inside it. Lily jumped off the swing mid-arc, landed perfectly, and ran toward them with her arms spread wide. "Did you see? I flew." "You did," Marcus said, catching her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Like the best bird ever." Lily took both her hands, Marcus's on one side, Victoria's on the other, and swung between them as they walked toward the ice cream vendor. "Can we get ice cream?" she asked with the perfect logic of an 8-year-old. "It's a celebration day." "What are we celebrating?" Victoria asked. "Daddy got his new badge today, and you're wearing your happy dress, and I got an A on my book report." Lily counted on her fingers. "That's 3 good things, which means ice cream is required." Victoria looked at Marcus. He shrugged, grinning. "The kid makes excellent points." They walked together toward the cart, Lily chattering about a book she was reading, a friend she'd made at school, a butterfly she'd seen that morning. Normal things, beautiful things, the kind of moments that made everything else worthwhile. As they waited in line, Lily looked up at Victoria with those serious gray eyes that reminded everyone of her father. "Mom, Victoria?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "Are we safe now? Forever and always?" Victoria knelt down to Lily's level, brushing a strand of blonde hair from the child's face. "We're safe, baby. Your daddy and I will always make sure you're safe." "Good," Lily said, satisfied, "because I love our family exactly the way it is." She skipped ahead toward the ice cream cart, leaving the 2 adults walking behind her, hands intertwined in a promise of tomorrows neither had dared to imagine just 1 year before. "Thank you," Victoria said softly. "For what?" "For letting me be part of this, for giving us all a chance at something beautiful." Marcus looked at his daughter, now 8 years old, laughing in the sunshine as she debated between strawberry and chocolate ice cream with the vendor. Safe and happy and loved, with a mother figure who adored her and a father who would move mountains to protect her. "Is it better?" Victoria asked, echoing a conversation they'd had months earlier. "Yeah," Marcus said, watching Lily finally decide on strawberry with extra sprinkles because, as she explained to anyone who would listen, special days required extra sprinkles. "It's better. It's everything we never knew we needed." They reached the ice cream cart together, 3 people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to build something beautiful in the light. Marcus ordered chocolate, Victoria chose vanilla, and Lily got her strawberry with rainbow sprinkles because she'd convinced the vendor that rainbow sprinkles were scientifically proven to make ice cream taste better. They sat on a park bench, Three unlikely puzzle pieces that somehow fit perfectly together. In the distance, Sterling Industries Tower gleamed against the sky, now a symbol not of corporate power, but of the place where their family had been forged through trial and trust. Viktor Petrov was serving 3 consecutive life sentences in a federal supermax facility, his empire dismantled, his networks destroyed. Somewhere other dangers still existed. Somewhere other families faced their own storms. But here, in this moment, there was only sunshine and ice cream and the sound of a little girl's laughter. And sometimes, Marcus thought, as he watched his daughter and the woman who'd become their family's missing piece, sometimes that was enough. Sometimes it was everything.